our next speakers, we're getting our thoughts from Dr. George Kent. Dr. George Kent is a professor emeritus of political science at the University of Hawaii. He served there for over 40 years. He's also currently affiliated with the University of Sydney in Australia and Saybrook University in California. He worked with several international organizations, including the FAO, UN Children's Fund, the World Food Program, and several non-governmental organizations. He is also on the board of directors of the International Peace Research Association Foundation. He has published lots of research, including significant books on food policy, human rights, and ending hunger. So with that, we are very actually glad to have him. I was telling him that I know his work since his first paper that he published all the way back in the 70s. And I'm honored that he accepted to join us today, even though it's almost 5:30 a.m. in his time in Hawaii. So Dr. Kent, I'll give you the mic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here, and I appreciate being with all of you in this setting. I think it's fascinating that we are all interested in sort of not a single issue, but a web of many interconnected issues, very, very messy, very difficult. My particular point of entry for dealing with these big issues has been the hunger problem in the world, which I've been trying to understand and make sense of for decades. And one of my preoccupations has been, while you have a fair amount of discussion about projects to end hunger in the world, I've looked and looked and looked and have yet to see a single serious plan devoted to that purpose, ending hunger in the world. And by a serious plan, I have a very technical definition, and that is, it's a serious plan is one where you expect the outcome to be achieved. About ending the world has been serious, because there hasn't been a serious exploration of the causes, the sources of hunger. I mean, food is not difficult to produce. It's not difficult to understand. Most children have at least a decent understanding. Where do we get stuck? Where do we get what's stopping us from ending hunger? Not a difficult concept at all. In a way, I go back to, for my own work, in a way I go back to my early studies in general systems thinking decades ago with Ludwig Bertalanffy and Norbert Wiener and those founders of that art form. And I particularly appreciate their notice that the whole is composed of parts. The organism is composed of organs, the organs are composed of cells, and so on. It's, again, not overly difficult concepts. And as I look at the hunger problem, I realize that perhaps the root that sustains the problem is people just don't care about one another. They just don't care enough about one another's well-being. Yes, for the people closest to you, we care. We'll do things to go out of our way to make sure they're doing well. Neighbors, a little bit. We might help them out occasionally. But someone on a different continent and the wrong color, why bother? I mean, those are not my people. I care, speaking generally, how people approach these things. People are tribal. So I've developed a new approach in my hunger studies and also my broader work, that there should be increasing focus not on civilizations, but on the units that comprise them, nation states, and within that, more locally, communities. We live in communities much more than we live in civilizations or even nation states. I mean, we live in communities where we interact well with our neighbors or don't, but that's That's where the opportunities are. And when there's a food crisis or some other crisis, the help shows up with, you know, a bag of food on the doorstep or something like that. I think the solutions need to be found there. This is my way of saying that in work on, it's very difficult to fix civilizations, just like it's difficult to fix a car. You can fix the subsystems in the car after the appropriate diagnosis. That's different from fixing a car. So, okay, let's fix civilizations, which, as some people have said, is a good idea, a good proposal that we should have a civilization. We should work on looking at the component elements and making them work well. So one of the challenges I put out in my writing and other contexts, what would you, if you were to create an entirely new community, if you had the opportunity to do that, perhaps with a small group of like-minded people, how would you design that community to ensure that there would be no hunger ever of anyone? It's an interesting challenge. My concern here is, how can we even begin to talk about ending world hunger if we can't answer the question of how do you end it locally? I mean, think of the hubris of saying, I'm going to fix civilization when you don't know how to fix things locally. So we have to be drawing to some degree on systems thinking. We have to find the pieces we can fix. And what you could be that you end up fixing the whole by fixing the parts internally and in the relationships among them. This is what led to my book called Caring About Hunger. My diagnosis is basically that we don't care enough. And the way to address the issue is to find ways to test and strengthen the caring at the level of local communities. So I want to suggest that this community level thinking should be a part of the strategic thinking of this project. That's the main point I want to make.